Hello, hello, hello. This is Dr. Troy.
And I'm Ben-Jamin Toy.
We're broadcasting from the Cohesion Culture headquarters in beautiful Charleston, South Carolina, where even when it rains, the sun still shines.
You're going to hear real-time stories from leaders confessing their most crucial or recent uh-oh experiences in business.
Learn what their uh-oh cost them, steps they took to fix it, and how they planned
to not do that one again.
All right, well, welcome Cohesive Leaders, Ben-Jamin and Dr. Troy here, and we are joined today with Dr. Andy Neillie. So excited to have you here.
Well, I'm glad to be with you guys. I've enjoyed listening to some of your podcasts. You've got an energy and a twinkle in your eye that's bringing a really good perspective to leadership and culture and team building. So thanks for having me on.
Question, have you been listening to the audios only, or do you watch it on YouTube? Which way have you been consuming our content?
So some audios, but then today I went to YouTube because I wanted to see what you guys looked like.
Awesome.
Well, hopefully you weren't too disappointed.
I still stayed tuned in. I just was a little scared of that uh-oh button.
Hang on to that one. We'll see how that goes. So, Dr. Andy, I have to ask you, when I first became a doctor, I had people saying, are you going to make all of your employees call you Dr. Hall? I said, absolutely not. They're going to call me Mr. Dr. Sir. So I don't know. How about you?
No, my employees just call me Andy. I do find when I'm doing some workshops and conferences, I'm introduced as Dr. Andy, and that's just easy for the day for people to call me that, and that's all right. It's supposed to denote some type of authority, as you know, Dr. Troy. All that really means when you got your doctorate is there's one tiny little area of research that for one day in the universe, you were supposed to know as much as anybody else about that. You wake up the next morning and you're already out of date.
Yes, we extended, all we did was extend the literature by something that was brand new. And I love that process. Anyone who's thinking about doing extended, graduate work or wanting to expand their education can really learn from this process that says that you don't have to be the expert, but you can be an expert.
Yeah.
And the best dissertation is a done one.
Well, you're speaking to somebody that was ABD for 9 years, and Dr. Troy and Dr. Andy, ABD means you finished all your coursework and then you were all but dissertation.
But dissertation.
And Ben, you only get 10 years to finish your dissertation. I was 9 years in. So a 9-year ABD just shows you that I'm a lazy procrastinator is what it shows you.
I guess I shouldn't tell you that I did my entire program and everything in 3 years and 3 months, right?
Ben, can you hit that mute button?
Yeah, I've got the mute button coming up.
Well, Dr. Andy, we've already started a little bit, but we really want to go on a little bit more, and we want to connect with you. So we'd like to know, tell us something about you that is not on your resume.
Well, you can look over my shoulder and see a rescue dog, although the dogs are an important part of my leadership journey, so they're on my resume. Oh, if you look right behind Traveler and the dog pillows, you can see an old water ski. I live about 3/4 of a mile from the bottom of Lake Austin here in Austin, Texas, and I've got a 30-year-old ski boat sitting in the driveway. So I'm a slalom water skier from like April to November, never on the weekends. I'm not a party boater. It's way too crowded, but 6:30 tomorrow morning, if the lake is open, you'll find me 40 feet behind a boat going 32 miles an hour.
Oh my gosh. I love slalom skiing. Now, do you alternate which foot forward, or is it always the same?
No, and in fact, you know a little bit about slalom. I quit trying to get better about 5 years ago. Now I'm just a lazy guy enjoying the beauty behind the boat. I don't do buoys anymore. I just am behind the boat cutting and enjoying the exercise and the beauty of the lake.
That's awesome.
Well, Ben's an outdoors person, so he runs 2 companies, and one of them happens to be Nature Adventures, and it is a paddleboard and kayaking company. And he does a lot of team building and team bonding with people on these tandem kayaks. He's even gotten me out there, even though I'm a little nervous about the water, but he does a super job with that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Very cool. Very cool.
And I snowboard a lot. I've been snowboarding since the mid-90s. And so for me to get that same feeling, I have a one wheel. So that skateboard with the one big center wheel like a go-kart. And I love it because I get to feel like I'm on the mountain all the time. And I don't try to do all the tricks that some people do. I just take it easy. I'm in my mid-40s and I just carve going down a road, down a trail. And I just, oh, it's so good.
Good for you. Good for you. Those look highly dangerous. The nice thing about slalom water skiing is when you fall, you get wet. And that's about it. You fall on one of those one wheels, and even if you have your helmet on, you see stars. So
I don't try to go too much faster than I can run it off.
But he does have a scar to prove it.
Yeah.
Yes. So Andy, so one of the things that you've shared, with us, which we really appreciate, is a little bit about the background of your dogs, the rescue dog Traveler, who is behind you, the black lab, who happens to also be 3% golden retriever, I think.
No, he's not a lab, Troy. He's a cattle dog. We've got a working dog. He's got to have a job.
He's a cattle dog.
Yeah, we thought we were really good dog people because Goldens would just do whatever we told them because we were such great leaders and we taught him commands. Traveler is, if we're not giving him a job, he gets himself in trouble. So I'm not as good a dog master as I thought I was. He's smarter than I am.
I think Traveler knows his name now because we've said it so many times that he's perking up every time. So
Yeah.
Well, Andy, so the next phase of this is we want to know a little bit more about you. We want to know who you are, identity-wise, character traits, behaviors. Who would others say you are? And this is regardless of roles that you've had outside of family life and hats you've worn. Who is Dr. Andy Neillie?
Yeah. Well, and it's integrated with the very stuff that when we first got connected, you asked me about. My Christian faith is foundational to me. I don't come from a churched home, but I found the Lord when I was very young at a summer camp, and he has been gracious to me and has led me my entire life. I've tripped and stumbled and looked the other way a bunch, but I think if people said what's really true about Andy is he looks to God for answers, and he is definitely still on the journey. He's not arrived, but he's on the journey. So I think that would be first and foremost, and really part of the and the leadership mistakes really have to do with, man, I'm not as good a leader as this servant leader that I've been reading about and trying to follow for my adult life. And I always miss the mark, but I'm on a journey.
Now, if you would identify those characteristics again, what would be a couple of words that you would use? So we got the concept, but what are some words that you would say people might use about you?
I hope they would say earnest, genuine, willing to admit his own mistakes, but trying, and we'll get up the next day and try again.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Awesome. All right. Now tell us a little bit about the roles, the hats you've had. You can go as far back into history as you'd like that leads you into what we're going to talk about. So family life, all the things.
Well, I really wear two hats. I'm the principal of Neillie Leadership Group, where I do leadership keynotes and workshops and conferences, coaching. I've got some online assessment tools. So kind of the world that we all are a bit familiar with. And I've been doing that for about 25 years now. I've got 5 million frequent flyer miles from flying all over the world, doing that kind of stuff. Totally apart from that, but fully integrated. And really where some of my O's have come. 16 years ago now, my wife and I became multi-territory swim school franchise owners. We own 5 swim schools in Central Texas, and it's a fun family story. Our daughter, who's today in her early 30s, was one of the original Aqua Tots, and the founder of it became a dear family friend. And you fast forward 32 years later, and Mr. Ron, the lifeguard, is today Mr. Ron Sierra, the master franchisor of the largest network of international swim schools in the world. And I manage a team of about 175 people. Last year, we did 200,000 swim lessons in our 5 swim schools here in Central Texas. So in some respects, the mistakes I've made have been with this management team, trying to figure out how do I lead them well and help us train a bunch of instructors to do swim lessons.
Awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Also heard married, children. That's Yep.
Happily married 45 years. Hard to believe because I'm only 39, but been married 45 years. We met in college. We have one child, a daughter who's in her early 30s. We're big CrossFitters, all of us as a family. Our daughter is a part-time coach at the gym we go to, and I'm working out. My goal is 15 CrossFit workouts a month. So my wife was at the gym at 5:30 this morning. I was at the gym at 6:30 this morning. So yeah.
Wow.
I'm just kind of cross unfit. I don't know. Maybe you have to work on that a little.
Yeah.
No,
I've been pickleballing. I'm playing pickleball by 7 a.m. So it's been helping. Lots of sweat.
Yeah, I do a little workout. I just not CrossFit.
Yeah.
So Andy, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this that you are so graciously willing to share with us. You know, the folks who listen to our podcast are individuals who, you know, they've somewhat been passed over. They have no plan for improvement to some degree. They not sure where they're going or what they're doing. So we kind of mentor them through mishaps and mistakes, and hopefully people can learn from someone else's situations as opposed to having to, you know, do it on their own.
Yeah.
Although they do want to do it on their own, we're going to let them do it. But if not, let's give them a head start. And so we're really looking forward to what you have decided to share with us today.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because the nature of your podcast is different than a lot that I speak on, where they really want to know what's your leadership mantra. And I've got a leadership model and all of the, but listening to some of your podcasts, I just realized it was 2008, Troy and Benjamin, and my consulting and coaching and speaking and training business was going great. And then 2008 hit, and if y'all were doing what you're doing now back then, you'll remember I got one phone call and lost $85,000 in that one phone call. And those phone calls kept coming because outside consultants were like the first thing that got cut. At the same time, my good friend, Ron, the swim guy, had figured out his business model and had turned it into a franchise and was expanding. He and I had stayed close family friends. He and his wife and me and my wife, we get together every year and we're just close family friends. And he said, "Hey, I've got the model down. Can you start helping us expand Aquatots beyond Arizona?" And we live in Texas. So I said no. My wife said no. If you'd asked my wife 16 years ago if she was interested in doing a high volume, low ticket, retail, child focused business, my wife would have said, "I don't know what hell looks like, but I think those ingredients are probably mixed up in there somewhere." But we had no revenue coming in. We both were consultants and everything dried up. And my friend kept saying, "Andy, you helped me build the business model a little bit. You're a businessman. You know what you're doing. We'll help you fund the franchise fee out of your revenue the first few years. So you don't even have to pay me anything. Just bring it to Texas." And we all of a sudden became swim. In fact, I went back and got recertified, and I became a swim instructor, you know, twice as old as a typical swim instructor. And I am training other instructors, and we launched Aquatots, not because we intended to. It was really an moment where it was like, man, I don't know what we're going to do, but here's what I do know. I'm going to get up and do something tomorrow, and I'm just going to put one foot in front of the other. And God seems to have a path for us to bring Aquatots to Central Texas. And so we began that journey. And I wish I could tell you it was just a wonderful journey. Today, I've got 175 employees, and we'll do about 5 million top line revenue between our 5 swim schools. But man, it's just been a series of uh-ohs. And Dr. Troy, Dr. Andy, all of the leadership theory that I was studied up on. And I've had to learn how much I needed to unlearn about what it really means to lead people.
Okay, no, that's really great. So, all right, so we have your experience, which is dealing around this, you know, mega company, but I want our listeners to be able to understand how it related to you, because, you know, oftentimes these individuals may not necessarily get the privilege of, you know, expanding into a business. And by the way, for historical records and economic records, 2008 was where there was a ton of problems in the economy, and it became a 10-year long term where the Fed rates were at 0%, And so the economy was not doing very well by many standards. And we got along with interest rates for mortgages well under, 2%. And it was just a terrible, so that terrible time. So now we've set the stage for this terrible catastrophe. And that explains why people didn't want to hire you, because companies use disposable income to hire consultants. They don't use their real money to pay their employees. So
still got to make payroll. I can't afford to go have a meeting at a hotel with
at a hotel with someone else. And by the way, it looked really bad during that time if you were a company who did that. All right. Yeah. So now let's focus on you. What did you learn specifically that impacted you, the individual?
So I think it comes back to this whole thing where there's a difference between theory and practicality. I'd finished my doctorate. I'd written my first book. I was flying around the country and some around the world doing conferences and coaching. And it was all good stuff. But 6 months later, I'm in a swimming pool at an apartment complex that we had a contract with to use their back pool to do swim lessons. And they had promised us they'd set aside this pool a couple of afternoons a week. I've got an instructor with me, and I'm having to explain to the parents about the couple, the apartment complex couple that were making out almost naked in a couple of the Barca loungers with a bunch of beer bottles around them, and having to transition from, I thought I was a big keynote speaker and workshop leader, and now I'm picking up Michelob bottles and embarrassingly telling parents we're going to move down to the other end of the pool. Guys, you just do what you need to do, right? And that I think was, if there's a lesson there, it's none of us are too good for what we need to do that's in front of us. And so you just showed up and did what you needed to do, and you weren't quite sure what you're going to do tomorrow, but when you woke up in the morning, you figured out what you were going to do that day, and you kind of, you put your hand to the plow and you don't look back.
Yeah.
What prepared you to handle the ego side of that transition?
Yeah, I think that takes me back to my faith, probably, because the leader that I was reading about in the Gospels was this selfless, other-oriented leader who didn't try to make it about himself. And I'm realizing, what needs to happen right now is the Michelob bottles need to be picked up, and the parents need to be assured their kids are going to have good lessons. Nobody cares that I've got a doctorate in leadership and 150,000 miles earlier this year flying around the country. They just paid to have their kids learn to swim. And so you just kind of recognize it's not about me. And I think based on what I've heard as I've listened to some of your other conversations, all three of us recognize really that the best leaders recognize they're at the bottom of the pyramid. They're not at the top of the pyramid. And,
right.
And that was just a very visceral example to me of what that looked like.
And I appreciate you being vulnerable about that, because, it's, I'll say transparent, because I use the words transparent and vulnerable in a different way. Transparency is sharing this information so it's out in the open. Vulnerability is sharing the emotional side that's connected to that transparency that you have. And we touched a little bit on some of that emotion, but if you were to describe it from an emotion, what do you think what was the emotion before 2008, and then what's the emotion at 2008?
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to think that I always recognized people of influence, not celebrity influencers, the way that they market themselves in the mid-2020s, but people of real influence. I could have told you from the front of my brain that they don't make it about them, that they'll empty the trash as easily as they'll sit at the head of the table in the boardroom. They know that's true. And so I'd like to think I knew that in the front of my head. I think 2008, 2009, 2010 really moved it from the front of my brain really to the back of my brain, and realized, man, this is core foundation. If you want to have the right to influence people for good, you got to meet them where they're at. Don't expect them to meet you where you're at.
Oh my gosh, amen. Could we be having some church right now? Because
Yeah, that's right.
because I often say that, when people talk about empathy, what I make sure that they understand is that our job is having empathy as a leader is to walk in someone else's shoes, not make them crammed into ours.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the second half of that is if we really do have a vision for the future, part of why we want to get in their shoes with them is so that we can bring them along. And one of
Absolutely.
the very satisfying things for me is I've been managing in a retail environment for more than 10 years now. I have people that have been with me as retail managers for more than 10 years. I didn't realize, but that's unheard of. People move from Walmart to Target to the local coffee shop to a restaurant to but we have people that have come and stayed, and I'd like to believe part of that is because we just realize it's not about us. It's got to be about them.
Yeah.
Still have hard decisions to make, because at the end of the day, you got to say no to some people, and you got to let some people go, and you got to hold some people accountable. And they need to know you're on their side of the table, like you said, Troy, as much as possible.
I know, and I hate to keep jumping in. I know Ben's going to ask a question here in a minute, but realistically, you're just summing up the whole idea of transformational leadership, which also leads into servant leadership, spiritual leadership, authentic leadership, but without making this a class. But the idea is that effective leaders who lead in today's environment, these are individuals who are, if you're looking for leadership opportunities, you have to think of others first before self.
Yeah.
It's not a martyrdom or a martyrism. It's just where you put your focus and your priority is on others and then self. And it doesn't take away, and it's a little conflicting sometimes when people say, but as a leader, don't I need to take care of myself and make sure that part of your learning and education and all of that. Yeah, that's the part. When they say take care of yourself, that's what they mean.
Yeah.
But when it comes to serving, it means you serve others first and then self.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, that's very, very wrapped up in Simon Sinek's books, Leaders Eat Last, right?
Yeah.
When they talk about that any type of Marine is gonna, any type of officer, let's make sure his folks, her folks are eating first, and they might only get scraps because they need to get taken care of, and that's a powerful one. Couple things though on the idea that with an outdoor business, I can relate in this scenario. Probably not the best pay. I mean, they're good as much as you can. But people that choose that type of work, of service in that area, they want to teach, they want to train, they want to be outdoors, they want to not be beholden to the 9-to-5 grind, all that kind of stuff. So it comes down to the culture, the environment you've created. So the fact that you've had folks that long, and me being in this industry, that I've now had a business, the outdoor one, for 8 years now, and had folks come back summer after summer. And actually in COVID, we had multiple folks say, hey, they was their part-time job that would work for free because they wanted to make sure that we still survived. Wow. And accidentally, we ended up having somebody work for free for 6 months that we were not aware of until it was time for taxes. So, but the thing is, he didn't need the money. He did it because he wanted to, and it was incredible. But what I really see this as being such a beneficial talk to listeners who are emerging, or I've heard this mindset so many times where you pay me more and I'll do more.
Yeah.
And I can get it to some degree where they've been around parents, and they've had parents that have just been steamrolled by corporations, right? They've invested everything into what they've done, and they've just been crapped on.
Yeah.
So I can understand where that comes from. But I still want to go in the servant mindset of it. The transformational mindset is do it regardless of the outcome, and you're going to be surprised long term. And I think I see a shift in the marketplace on where people are realizing that they want to take care of people. And so listeners, find the way to serve other folks, your peers, your superiors, your whatever, your customers, and people will see that, and it will get rewarded. I think there's been enough shift in the marketplace where those in leadership are not going to give the empty promises like they used to.
Although, Ben, I think the tension, man, I fully agree with you. Simon Sinek and his Leaders Eat Last, and all of Patrick Lencioni's books, The Ideal Team Player, which, by the way, gentlemen, I think should really be titled The Ideal Team Leader, and a whole host of other books. On the one hand, on the other hand, I still see this whole kind of cult of celebrity leadership where real, celebrity influencers. If I just get my 10,000 followers, I'm a person of influence. And no, you're not. You didn't make anybody's life better for the time they spent with you. You just did fashion modeling or showed the new stuff you were trying. So I think we're at a bit of a dilemma, because I think a lot of people think, well, what I really need to do is become have a lot of influence. Well, no, you earn influence the way the three of us are talking about. And at the end of the day, you hope that the people that worked for you are better for the time that they spent with you. But even that's a crapshoot, if we're real honest at times.
So let's take your situation that you had with your moment there in 2008. What did it cost you? So in terms of, we already understood a little bit of the economic standpoint. You talked about the money you lost and things of that nature. But what did your experience cost you?
Well, the financial, we kind of blew by it. But, my wife and I are more than 20 years into our marriage, getting ready to sell our house and move back into an apartment, and wondering how we're going to put our daughter through college, and all of those big questions that we couldn't answer. I don't know if there was an I'm embarrassed moment, because the truth of the matter is these are two different worlds. Dr. Andy, who flies around doing conferences, nobody knows that Dr. Andy in Austin. What they know in Austin is there's a series of swim schools that I can take my kids to. I think probably more practically for me, just realizing these retail workers are expecting me to bring pizza and Dr. Pepper to the pool. Otherwise, they're not happy with me. And just realizing that's kind of what it comes down to. Having parents tell me what to do when I've got, at that point I had 3.5 million frequent flyer miles and written books, and I've got 23-year-old moms and dads telling me off. It's just some humble pie, but the truth of the matter is everybody has a right to their own expectations. And if you're really going to want to do good for them, you meet them where they're at so that you can move them forward. And that's why I shared with you guys 15 minutes ago, all my leadership stuff. I think I'm more proud about the 200,000 swim lessons that my instructors did at our 5 swim schools last year than perhaps anything else, because they saved some lives. We don't even know the lives they've saved because they were saved. But
I think the other thing too is you get a chance to relate to them. Like I know from speaking at conferences and doing workshops and things that, yes, I've made some great connections and I have them, but for the thousands of people that I've seen, it's only a minuscule number of individuals that I can connect with on an individual basis and really see the individual impact. Here you get to see you get to see all of these individual impacts and then the impact it is to the community as well. So I think there's a big visualization for that. What would you recommend to people who are, having a dilemma between their ego? Because I think that what we've kind of addressed this to be is they're having some struggles with their ego. They realize they have to eat some humble pie. What would you say were the steps that you took so that you could, really just kind of get on with it and not let that really drag you down and make you feel less confident of yourself, or that you all of a sudden have, some imposter syndrome thing going on or whatever.
Right. Well, part of it takes me back to my faith where, okay, God, this is a different path than I thought. Jesus, I'm going to trust that you haven't forgotten about my wife and me. And then part of it is just that, I ended up using when COVID hit so many years later, 5 years ago now, and I had our swim schools. They're now been indoor year-round swim centers where we have management teams and instructors, and I manage the managers. We started meeting on daily phone calls, and I called it confident uncertainty. Not sure what the CDC is going to let us do, not sure what our landlords are going to require, what the local municipalities. Here's what we know today, and we're going to do what we can do today. Tomorrow it may change, but today we're going to be confident. We're not sure what it's going to look like in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, but confident uncertainty means do the best with what you have in front of you right now and pivot if you need to, but don't wring your hands and not do anything because you don't know what the best thing to do is. Go do something.
And
Great,
I love,
great advice.
so I was going to ask this question, then you brought it up, that COVID. So that 2020 happens. You're in a different situation now, right? You still had your leadership, you had your conferencing, but that probably went away like for a while, right?
Yep.
But so now, how are you feeling? There was uncertainty, but you also had something else going on. What did you feel differently in 2020 than you did in 2008?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I was wondering if you're going to get to this. Good question, Ben, because so many individual consultants, part of our problem is we can make a really good living when we speak or when we write or when we coach, but we don't have anybody else building the enterprise. Well, when we started multiplying, all of a sudden I've got 175 people working for me, and we were not an overnight success, but over time we started learning how to build a profitable business that I didn't need to be at. So COVID hit. We had to shut down. Everybody had questions, but we had some cash reserves and we had some resiliency from other people's labor. That's that whole thing of, are you building a practice, speaker and coach, or are you building a business that can live on without you? I wish I could tell you I purposed that I'm strategically going to turn Aquatatsu into a business. This is part of my strategic plan and a 15-year goal. I wasn't that smart. I just kind of fell into it. But that's what ended up developing. And so when COVID hit, we had a whole bunch of other issues. I mean, guys, it was just so ridiculous. We had to shut our doors. We had no revenue coming in. We had landlords saying, if we don't pay them rent, they're going to lock us out. It's like, well, we're already locked out and we can't afford to pay rent. You better work with us on things. But that was the world we all were living in. And so I wish I could say it was strategic. It wasn't. I think God has led me into everything I've done, and I've stumbled my way through. But we built a business and not just a practice, and that gave us some resiliency. So, for some of your listeners, I would say, as you think about your what am I going to do? I got to pivot some. Think about how to create revenue without working. And really that's what we built. I've got, 5 swim schools fully operating today, putting kids through swim lessons, teaching kids. And I haven't touched a single school. I haven't been in any of our schools in a couple of weeks now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And there's a saying that a lot of folks know is don't put all your chickens in one basket. But I'm a big fan of just having more chickens.
That's good. That's good.
So, I mean, the idea, and while we promote grow, develop, and advance your career, I am always going to be the proponent of having a side hustle, having some other, and that's getting to this point, is that it's okay while to have a career, but have some other hobby that could pay a little bit here and there that could always be something you lean on when times are challenging or not.
Yeah.
That wasn't
that smart. I kind of fell into it, but that's what we have. And
yeah.
And so if you're asking me, what would you say to somebody that's earlier in that path? I would say, listen to what Ben just said. I wasn't smart enough to be strategic about it. I just had to do it, but it made the difference.
Yeah, it's about creating scalability for businesses, right. And in this case, things that Ben and I are working on are passive income, so that that passive income is there whether we're there or not. So
exactly.
But listen, it's been great, Dr. Andy. I can't believe time has flown by. What a great wealth of information. So we'd like to find out, what question did you think we were going to ask you that we didn't?
You guys asked some pretty good questions. I'm not quite sure. Would I have done it over again if I knew what I was getting myself into?
Okay, so Dr. Andy, would you do it over again if you knew what you were getting into?
It was longer and harder and more painful and scarier to do this. I got to pivot, 16 years ago now, spring of 2009. If I had known then what it was going to take, I would have said, no, we're going to figure out a way to keep money coming in without doing that. But 16 years later, as I look back, 200,000 swim lessons a year for the last several years, 175 people that we've helped them put bread on the table, managers that have been with me for 10 years. I'm so glad that we leaned into our time.
And what if you had the knowledge that you have now about running the business and the people and at the start, right? That to me is an incredible difference.
Yeah.
You know, you can do it faster if you can apply what you know now.
Yeah. So definitely benefit. If I, 16 years ago, while I was a leadership guy, I was not great at reading P&Ls and balance sheets and cash flow statements. And I read those every month now very carefully, and vendor relationships and tax laws and things like that. If I'd known all of that 16 years ago, could we have avoided some of the pain we put ourselves through? Probably. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So, Dr. Andy, how do people get in touch with you?
Well, just Neillie Leadership. And the good, bad thing about my name is it's hard to spell or hard to pronounce, but you can see it on the screen here. If they just go to neillieleadership.com, they can learn a little bit more about me. I have these types of conversations with other consultants and coaches and leaders like y'all. And I think there's a link on the top of my website. If somebody just wants to grab 15 minutes, I'd be glad to, pick each other's brain for that brief amount of time. So
good.
Yeah.
For the listeners, that's Neillie.
Yeah, that's right. That's
right. Neillie. I feel like we're ready to say operators are standing by. It seems like that would be appropriate. But anyway, Andy, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, sharing your heart, sharing your faith with us, your journey, your experience. And as we close out all of our Cohesion Culture programs, we do so with this mantra. You don't have to know everything.
Just need to be teachable.